What happened to Elon Musk's Hyperloop? And why it's a pipe dream. Literally, Elon Musk's Hyperloop was supposed to be the future of transportation, a sleek, sci-fi tube that would shoot passengers across the country at near-supersonic speeds. It promised to revolutionize travel, making the trip from Los Angeles to San Francisco a breezy 30 minutes. But like most of Musk's grand ideas, looking at you, Cybertruck, the Hyperloop has become a cautionary tale of overpromising and under-delivering. So, what happened? And why is the Hyperloop basically a physics-defying death trap? Let's dive in, preferably not into a depressurized tube of doom. Now before I move on, consider a like or subscribe. It would mean a lot to this small growing channel. Also, if you got any comments, feel free to leave them in the section below. Let's move on with the story. The Hyperloop, a vacuum-sealed nightmare. The core idea of the Hyperloop is simple: shoot pods through a low-pressure tube at insane speeds. To achieve this, Musk proposed creating a near vacuum inside the tube to reduce air resistance. Sounds cool, right? Except for one tiny problem: maintaining a vacuum over hundreds of miles is ridiculously hard. Imagine trying to suck all the air out of a straw that stretches from LA to San Francisco. Now imagine that straw is made of metal, welded together by humans, who, let's be honest, aren't perfect. Even the tiniest leak would cause the vacuum to fail, turning your high-speed pod into a glorified subway car. And if the vacuum fails catastrophically? Well, let's just say you'll wish you'd taken the bus. Decompression, the Hyperloop's darkest comedy. Here's where things get darkly hilarious. If the Hyperloop tube were to decompress suddenly, say, because a squirrel chewed through it or a drunk driver crashed into a support pillar, the consequences would be, well, let's call them explosive. Picture this: you're zipping through the tube at 700 miles per hour, sipping on a latte and scrolling through memes. Suddenly, the vacuum fails. The air rushes in, creating a shockwave that slams into your pod like a freight train. Your latte becomes a projectile, your memes are now irrelevant, and your pod either grinds to a halt or disintegrates into a million pieces. Either way, you're not making it to San Francisco. And let's not forget the human factor. Ever been on a plane when the cabin pressure drops? Now imagine that, but at 700 miles per hour, in a metal tube, with no escape. The Hyperloop isn't just a transportation system, it's a Darwin Award waiting to happen. Engineering challenges: why the Hyperloop is doomed. Even if we ignore the whole vacuum of death thing, the Hyperloop faces a mountain of other problems. 1. Thermal expansion. Metal tubes expand and contract with temperature changes. A tube stretching hundreds of miles would warp like a cheap IKEA shelf in the sun, making it impossible to maintain a perfect seal. 2. Cost. Building a vacuum-sealed tube across entire states would cost billions, if not trillions, of dollars. And who's footing the bill? Certainly not Elon Musk, who famously outsourced the idea to other companies while he focused on, well, whatever he's doing with Twitter/X these days. 3. Safety. Even if the Hyperloop worked perfectly, evacuating passengers in an emergency would be a logistical nightmare. How do you rescue people from a sealed tube in the middle of nowhere? Spoiler, you don't. 4. Speed versus reality. The Hyperloop's promised speeds rely on near-frictionless conditions, which are impossible to maintain in the real world. Even a slight misalignment in the tube would turn your smooth ride into a bone-rattling nightmare. The Hyperloop's legacy, a lesson in hubris. So, what happened to the Hyperloop? In short, it fizzled out like a wet firework. Most companies working on the concept have either gone bankrupt or pivoted to less ambitious projects. The few test tracks that were built are now collecting dust, serving as monuments to human overconfidence. The Hyperloop was always more of a thought experiment than a practical idea. It's a reminder that not every flashy concept can, or should, become reality. Sure, it's fun to imagine zipping across the country in a vacuum tube, but in the real world, physics always wins. So, the next time someone pitches you a revolutionary transportation idea, just remember, if it involves a vacuum, high speeds, and a complete disregard for human safety, it's probably best to stick with the bus. Please like and subscribe.